a lot made of Ferrari going into this race with a advanced car and what they've had so far this year. And on qualifying, stunned me. I was certain when Max was in the wall, that's a front row lockout. I don't think anybody was expecting Ferrari to go and get a front row lockout or potential front row lockout. So that was a big surprise. But that pace evaporated on the Sunday. They just seemed to go backwards, even with Lewis taking that extra stop. He wasn't really in the fight for the podium. I think Kimi would have got him on track anyway. They must be really scratching their heads at why this has gone so bad. I saw a theory that it's the altitude with the turbo, which should be better at Silverstone. But do you have any idea of
No, and that's why it was quite disappointing that we didn't get the full debrief like we would normally to find out actually what went wrong. Was it the tyres not lasting as expected? Was there a deficit in power which they hadn't anticipated? It is a shame, the pace dried up, and that's kind of what robbed us that grandstand finish, because the first third, Hamilton was looking really competitive, and it was great watching sort of him and Charles and Max and everyone. They were all fighting for position. It was great, but unfortunately that fight died off, didn't it, in the sort of second third and final third, definitely. So there will be some deep dives going into this weekend, and hopefully we'll find out as to what went wrong, whether it was a strategy thing, which we spoke about earlier. Perhaps that didn't help matters. But, it felt for me like there was a fundamental issue which was holding them back.
Do you think a fundamental issue at the moment is Charles Leclerc's headspace? Because the guy has got this new contract, and it seems like ever since, maybe it's not when pen was put to paper, but certainly when the announcement was sent to the press, that has been a weakness. I saw a stat, which I'm going to pluck out of Reddit probably, I haven't verified, that this is the biggest gap that Charles Leclerc has had to a teammate in his entire career. Seems very legit, though, because I can't think off the top of my head, and I've been watching Charles all his career, that this has been the case. Is this a down on his luck, Charles Leclerc, or is this Lewis Hamilton taking full advantage in his second season? Now he's got his feet under the table.
A bit of both, isn't it? I think that Leclerc has obviously been aware when Hamilton was announced to be joining Ferrari. All the questions were on Leclerc about how will he cope, and he was brilliant with the media. He answered everything, but was also very assured. This is my team. I'm welcome Lewis, and he's got that ingredient. I know why he's coming here. He knows how to win championships, etc. Talking a really good game. And I think that last year, the fact that he was ahead of Hamilton quite comfortably at times, even though the results weren't going their way, he was still the most, consistent of the two Ferrari drivers. So he would have come into this season probably expecting the same, especially given the turbulence over the winter, Hamilton changing race engineers and various other elements as well. And he probably had serious title aspirations, thinking, I could pull away if Ferrari have delivered the car which they'd promised. This championship's mine. Just got to knuckle down and do what I do best. And, fantastic in qualifying. Just need to iron out the problems on Sunday and start converting those points. But of course, what we've seen is, and I don't think many of us had expected it. I think, I'd seen Hamilton's career long enough to know that he does take a little while to adjust, but then he when he gets it right, he does make improvements quickly. And I think we saw that when he joined Mercedes in that first season. No one expected that win to come as early as it did, but there we go, it did. And I think that it's, reflecting on that, reflecting on the time now with Ferrari last year, how disappointing it was. That was just getting everything out the system, trying to chase tails, trying to figure out how to, get his thoughts across to the engineers, and that's now all water under the bridge. He's come into the season, fresh start, fresh motivation, and he's beating his teammate. And the effect of that is that Leclerc starts thinking, hang on a minute, what's happened? You think, how come he's now, I was wiping the floor with him last year. How is he now beating me? What's gone on? What's different? And then you start to question your own approach, everything that's going on. You start looking around your garage and wondering whether something's going on different in the other side. Is he getting something that I'm not? Is he getting an extra engine mode, or, there was the question about the brakes. Hamilton was very vocal about the brakes on his car, and they changed the material to Carbon Industries on the Ferrari when they, traditionally use Brembo. All of a sudden, Leclerc's saying, actually, I need to find out what's going on here because my brakes didn't work in Monaco. I want the same setup. But of course, you're then chasing someone else, and that element of doubt, when that goes in your mind, it's very difficult to have a clean, solid weekend because you're trying to second guess what's going on in the garage next door, and he doesn't want to be in that place because he just wants to knuckle down and focus on himself. So caught in two minds, distracted, you could say. And I think that's a really awkward position for him to be in, and he needs to boot all that negativity out of his mind, and he needs to come into Silverstone swinging in the same way that George Russell did, last weekend.